It'll just take about 15 seconds or so to get this going. Okay, we are live on YouTube now.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Committee of Adjustment meeting for Wednesday, June 16th, and it is now past 6:30, so we will begin. I wonder if I might have a mover and seconder for adoption of agenda. Moved by Frank, seconded by Al. And all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Item number 2, if we could have accepting of the minutes of the previous meeting, if a mover and a seconder, please. Terry and Bill. Thank you. And the disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof, which we cover in the public or in the comments, don't we?
Normally we would cover it now. If anybody
Okay.
was disclosing a conflict of interest, they would state it now.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a conflict of interest in one of the applications, and I'd like to read the declaration of conflict of interest for the committee.
Thank you.
It says, I, Frank Corbeil, declare a conflict of interest as a pecuniary interest in item number 4 of agenda dated June 16th, 2021, file B 2021-21. And the reason for the conflict is due to the fact that I'm making application to sever the property at 922 Quakeway on behalf of Mr. Andrew Glab, and further due to Mr. Glab being in negotiations with my son on the sale of the severed property at 922 Quakeway Road.
Okay.
I confirm that I will not vote on the matter. I will not take part in discussion on any question in respect of the matter, and I will not attempt in any way, whether before, during, or after the meeting, to influence the voting on such a question.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. That's noted.
Mr. Chair, that's been signed and submitted to Carrie.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there any other conflicts of interest to be declared? No. With that, I will ask if there is ratepayers delegation for this evening. There is none. And any business arising from the last meeting? And if not on that, then we will move forward to the public hearings and the files that we have for this evening. And so I will say good evening and welcome to this Committee of Adjustments meeting. The Council of the Municipality of East Ferris has empowered this committee to make decisions on minor variances and consent to sever applications on their behalf. This committee is made up of 5 citizen members and 2 members of council. And I will ask that the members introduce themselves one at a time, please.
I'm Bill Boak.
I'm Al Harif.
I'm Erica Lougheed.
I'm Terry Kelly.
Did you get me, John?
We got you
Mr.
now,
Chair.
Frank. Thank you. And Carrie. And Greg.
I'm Carrie, recording clerk.
Thank you. And I'm John Simmons, acting chair and member of the committee. As required under the Planning Act and pursuant to policy, the committee is holding a public meeting prior to making a decision on the proposed applications. The Committee of Adjustments has not yet made any decisions on these matters, and all comments received prior to this evening's meeting, as well as comments received tonight during the meeting, will be considered in their decision. The committee makes our decisions based on the criteria outlined in the Planning Act that corresponds to the specific application type. The process will be as follows for this evening. I will ask the applicant to present their application, and that will follow the order listed on our agenda. And I'll ask the committee if they will have any questions of the applicant. Staff will provide their comments about the application and give an overview of correspondence that has been received, if any. And members of the public will present and answer questions if needed. We will then move on to a motion to approve or refuse the application. I'd ask that all comments be respectable, that everyone be respectable in their presentations, and the comments should relate directly to the application that we're referring to. So we'll now move to the first item on our agenda, which is file B2021-4, Brian Irwin, 456 Johnson Road.
Okay, I'll let Mr. Irwin in from the waiting room.
Thank you. Good evening. How are you this evening? Connecting audio. Hello. Can you hear us okay? We can't hear you yet.
Must have his line muted.
Yeah. We're connecting to audio again. Okay. Oh, I think we're hearing something now, Brian.
Hello.
Hi. John Simmons here. Thanks for joining us this evening. And I would ask if you could go ahead and tell us about your application.
Sure. I'm come before you today looking for a consent to sever on 456 Johnson Road. It's section B. It was deferred from the April meeting. There were some concerns with Mattawa Conservation, and we met with them, and we've revised the lot size since then to make all parties happy. So we've gone from a 2.56 acre lot to a 3.23 acre lot. Basically, we've added an extra 100 feet to the back end of it. So it's 500 feet deep, 282 feet wide, gives you the 3.23 acres.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this application at this point?
May I ask what the original concern was with the North Bay Mattawa Conservation?
Yeah, no problem. There is a ditch running through the first third of the property, and they had a concern with the setback, 45-meter setback from that ditch. And if from the ditch to the 45-meter setback, it would have made it really tight on the back of the property for building a home. So I just expanded the lot size to accommodate whatever someone as far as building. And there was some low-lying water in the very front of the property, but all those situations can be addressed with Mattawa.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, any questions from anybody else? Then I'll ask Greg if you would like to address the application.
Sure, thanks. So as Mr. Irwin stated, this application was deferred from the previous meeting because of North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority concerns with regards to setback from a small wetland section, as well as the water course that runs through the property. So we did a site visit, Mr. Irwin, myself, and two staff from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. Following the site visit, Mr. Irwin redrew his plans, and Paula Scott provided us with a buffer map from the existing wetland and water course. Essentially, it's exactly what Mr. Irwin described. It would have been very tight to site a home adequately on the previous lot layout. So by extending the lot back another 100 feet, It provides a very nice flat, like tableland type area to construct a dwelling. So based on that, we've received updated comments from the Conservation Authority with no objection. We've also received comments of no objection from the MTO and Hydro, and I have no objection based on municipal planning policies or Planning Act guidelines.
Greg, was there any comments from any neighbors in the area?
I know there was not on the first application nor this one.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions? Any direction, motion? From
Read the
anyone,
decision.
please?
I think, John, we should go ahead and approve the application.
Okay, would you like to read the motion?
So file number B 2021-14, the applicant is requesting consent to sever from the Committee of Adjustment for the purpose of creating one new lot for residential purposes from the property at 456 Johnson Road. We, the undersigned, in making the decision upon this application, have considered whether or not the requested consent is in conformity with the policies laid out in the East Ferris official plan and consistent with the requirements of section 5124 of the Planning Act. Concur in the following decision and reasons for decision on the 16th day of June, 2021, that the requested consent to create one new lot be approved conditional upon the following. That confirmation is provided that taxes are paid up to date, that a plan of survey is prepared and filed with the municipality, that a plan of survey be sent electronically to the municipality of East Ferris Community Planner, that the applicant pay $250 in finalization fees prior to the transfer of the parcel of land, that the applicant is required to pay $1,000 per consent application to the municipality of East Ferris for the parkland dedication fee, that the transfer of land is submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the issuance of the certificate of consent, that subsection 53 of the Planning Act as amended applies to any subsequent conveyance or transaction of or in relation to the parcel of land being the subject of this consent, and that all conditions must be filed within 1 year from the date of notice of decision. Decision has been given, otherwise this provisional consent will lapse and the application for consent shall be deemed refused.
Okay. So do I just call for the vote on that, Greg? Or is there a first and second required? I'm not sure.
Okay, do we need to
John,
move
yeah, John normally just kind of goes around and
Okay.
gets an yay or nay from the members.
Yeah. Terry?
Yes, I'm all for it. Thank you.
Okay, Erica? Okay, Al?
I'm okay.
Good, and Bill?
Yeah, I've got there was no objections from the community and any concerns were dealt with, so I have no issue whatsoever.
Okay, and Frank?
I'm in agreement.
Okay, well then that is passed. Greg, I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, thanks. So Mr. Irwin, I'll follow up with you similarly to your application B 2021-13. So I'll have the same documentation following this meeting as you received at the previous meeting for that application.
Good.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good. Excellent. We can now move ahead to file B 2021-18, Rick Champagne and Nancy Best for 1808 Corbeil Road. Good evening.
Your time.
Yep.
Good evening. You can hear us. Can we hear you?
I'm good.
Good. Okay. Thank you. So we're here to discuss file 2021-18. If you would care, Rick, Nancy, to just talk us through a little bit about your application.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We're watching on the iPad and the iPad won't shut off. All right. No, this application came through couple of years ago, actually 3 years ago, and it was no fault of your own but mine. Just let it lapse for the second time. And so what we're actually doing is severing off 13 acres with the house and keeping the retainer so we can build another home at a future date. Again, there was no objections in the past. Hopefully there won't be again. And we thank you for the opportunity for this application. And I
Thank you.
love Erica's background. I think it gets better all the time.
Oh, it's just me.
Does any committee member have any questions in relation to this application?
Frank, is this exactly the same application that we have seen before, or there's been no changes to it in any way?
Was that a question for me, Al?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this is identical to the previous two applications that were both approved.
Okay. So anything else, Greg, you would want to share?
Yeah, sure. I can go ahead, and then I guess if there's any other questions from the committee members, we can deal with them after. But yeah, this application. So I included a copy of the previous staff report, which I support the conclusions that were reached in that by previous staff. This application is absolutely identical to the past two. It's just that conditions lapsed, so the application needs to be reapplied for. We didn't receive any objection letters from any neighboring property owners, and we also received support from the Conservation Authority, MTO, and Hydro.
Very good, thank you. So are there any other questions at this time by committee members? No. So then Carrie, I'll ask if you can read.
File number B 2021-18. The applicant is requesting consent to sever from the Committee of Adjustment for the purpose of creating one new lot from the property at 1808 Corbeil Road. We, the undersigned, in making the decision upon this application, have considered whether or not the requested consent is in conformity with the policies laid out in the East Ferris official plan and consistent with the requirements of Section 5124 of the Planning Act. Concur in the following decision and reasons for decision on the 16th day of June 2021, that the requested consent to create one new additional lot be approved, conditional upon the following. A confirmation is paid that all taxes are paid up to date, that a plan of survey is prepared and filed with the municipality, that a plan of survey be sent electronically to the municipality of East Ferris community planner, that the applicant pays $250 in finalization fees prior to the transfer of the parcel of land, that the applicant is required to pay $1,000 per consent application to the municipality of East Ferris for the parkland dedication fee, that the transfer of land is submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the issuance of the certificate of consent, that subsection 53 of the Planning Act as amended applies to any subsequent conveyance or transaction of or in relation to the parcel of land being the subject of this consent, and that all files must be filed within 1 year from the date the notice of decision has been given. Otherwise, this provisional consent will lapse and the application for consent shall be deemed to be refused.
Okay, thank you. We'll do the same thing, go around table and get your consideration on it. And I'll start again with Terry.
I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Yeah, all good. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
I'm okay with it. Thanks.
Good. And Bill?
All good, John.
Good, thank you. And Frank?
I'm okay, thanks.
Good. And therefore, we will consider that approved. And Greg, away you go.
Yeah, so Rick, I'll send you documentation with the notice of decision, copy of the decision, and make sure the lapsing date is highlighted on there.
I appreciate it, and it won't happen again. I don't get enough money, I think.
Is there a strike count?
No, there's not.
Okay. You're all right.
Greg, I've got one more question for Rick.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The last time I think he came back, he said that if he didn't get this done, he was going to be in the doghouse. If he doesn't get this done for a third time, where's he going this time?
Out the door. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you for the opportunity, and stay safe.
Thank you. You as well. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move on to file B 2021-19 and -20.
Doesn't get this done for a third time, where's he going this time?
We can hear you. You're there, Marcel.
Thank you
Yeah.
for the opportunity and stay safe.
Thank you. You as well. Take care.
Thank you.
If you could just mute the YouTube stream, Marcel, that would be helpful.
Okay, we will now move on to file B 2021-19 and -20.
Doesn't get this done for a third time, where's he going this time?
We can hear you. You're there, Marcel.
Thank you for the opportunity and stay safe.
Thank you.
Yes, but you need to close the YouTube stream or mute it. YouTube stream, Marcel, that would be helpful.
Okay, we will now move on to file B 20.
We can still hear it.
9 and -20.
Doesn't get this done for a third time, where's he going this time?
We're hearing it on repeat now.
Yeah, just keep
You're there, Marcel.
Thank you for the opportunity and stay safe.
Just close the window. Close the browser window that the YouTube is opened in.
Can I close that?
Yeah.
There
There we go. Mhm.
Thank you. So we will proceed now with file B 2021-19 and -20. Dan de Gagne, part of lot 14, concession 9, part 1, 2, and 3. If you would please care to just outline the application and what you're looking for tonight.
Okay, unfortunately, my son couldn't be here, Dan, so I'm gonna replace him. I'm a part owner of the company. I think I still own some shares in it. So it's okay if I present it?
Yes.
Okay, so what we want to do is we sold lot 3 and the clients have built a house on it, and it's the garage doors are on the north side of the line, and it's a bit tight for them to get out of the garage. So we'd like to push lot 3 north line about 5 meters, and same as lot 2 to keep it to 45 meters. So lot 3 would become approximately 50 meters, and lot 2 would stay at 45. It's to give room to lot 3 an extra 15 feet, approximately 5 meters.
Okay, that's it.
And yes, I also own part 1, so it encroach my property of approximately 5 meters, which I still have. I've got about 396 meters right now, so it'd leave me with around, whatever the math is there, 385. It still leave me lots of room.
Yeah. Okay. Does any member have any questions of Marcel on the application? No hands up, no voices heard. So Greg, if you'd like to speak to the application.
Sure. Yeah, it's a very straightforward application. Essentially, it's just a lot line adjustment, just sliding the lot boundaries over of those 2 lots, just to accommodate a little bit more space for the middle lot of these 3 lots that we created 2 years ago through consent. So no new lots being created, and no concerns at all from my end. And similarly to the other applications, no concerns from Conservation Authority, MTO, or Hydro again.
So Greg, it seems like they're large lots. It seems like it meets all like road allowances, et cetera. There's no issue with that at all with the change?
Yeah, so these lots, they were previously created by consent applications that were reviewed by this committee 2 years ago. But the middle of the 3 lots that was created wasn't quite wide enough for what the homeowners want to do with it. So essentially they want to slide the lot line over 15 feet. And then by doing that, the reason why there's two consent applications is because the lot beside it also needs to slide over 15 feet. So we need to adjust 2 lot lines over. So the lots are the same basically for all intents and purposes, except the middle one is about 15 feet wider now.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's good. And those are all my comments on this application.
Okay, thank you.
I have
Then-
no issues with this, John.
I'm sorry?
I don't have any concerns. It seems to meet all the planning board requirements, so.
Okay, good. And I don't see anything that looks like any objections, so I'll ask Carrie if you could read a motion, please.
File number B 2021-19 and B 2021-20. The applicant is requesting consent to sever from the Committee of Adjustment to allow for a lot line adjustment for 2 existing lots that were created by consent back in 2019. We, the undersigned, in making the decision upon this application, have considered whether or not the requested consent is in conformity with the policies laid out in the East Ferris official plan and consistent with the requirements of Section 51 of the Planning Act. Concur in the following decision and reasons for decision on the 16th day of June 2021, that the requested consent for a lot line adjustment be approved, conditional upon the following for each application. Confirmation is paid that all taxes are up to date, that a plan of survey is prepared and filed with the municipality, that a plan of survey be sent electronically to the municipality of East Ferris Community Planner, that the applicant pays $250 in finalization fees prior to the transfer of the parcel of land, that the transfer of land is submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the issuance of the certificate of consent under subsection 53 of the Planning Act. That subsection 53 of the Planning Act, as amended, applies to any subsequent conveyance or transaction of or in relation to the parcel of land being the subject of this consent, and that all conditions must be filed within 1 year from the date the notice of decision has been given. Otherwise, this provisional consent will lapse and the application for consent shall be deemed to be refused.
Thank you. Erica, are you good? Thank you. No, it's getting close. Terry?
I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Good. Bill, you've indicated yes already. Frank?
I agree.
And Al?
I'm okay.
Then that is also approved. And Greg, go ahead.
So Marcel, before the end of the week, you'll get the standard documentation with the notice of decision, information on the end of the appeal time period, and all the stuff that we normally send you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
So I think we may lose one member momentarily here. So by all means, and Greg, I think we're still good to carry on with this final application with the remaining 1, 2, 3 voting members of our committee.
So yeah, you'll have four members. So we do meet quorum because Frank will be presenting his application now.
Yeah.
So yeah, you still have quorum to vote on it.
Thank you. Yeah, because we lost 2 there. Okay, good. So we will move forward with file 2021, Frank Corbeil on behalf of Andrew Glab for 922 Quay Road. Frank, would you care to tell us about this application, please? You there, Frank?
And it boots me out and brings me back in.
Okay, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yep. You can go ahead and present the application. Looks like he's freezing.
Mr. Andrew Glab is looking to sever a portion of his property at 922. He's looking to sever approximately 1.6 hectares on the corner of Quay as it makes that bend. And it's for the creation of a new lot. And as I said, my declaration, he's in negotiations, of course, with my son. So I don't know. That's basically it. Mr. Glab asked me to make the presentation to the committee on his behalf, and that's where I'm at.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there any questions from any member of the committee at this time? Yes, Terry.
Just for Greg, Chair. So basically that's 4 acres of land. Is that correct, Greg?
A little over, about 4.15 acres or so, yeah.
Lots of land. I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Good, good.
He will be retaining the 45 meter necessary of frontage on his property, so it's within it's within line.
Perfect. Greg, do you have any comments or anything to share on the application?
Yeah, I'll go over my stuff. So I've included my staff report. I have no objections to the application, given that both the severed and retained lands either meet or exceed our bylaw requirements. There's no environmental restraints on site, and we received comments from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority confirming that there are no objections or issues with relation to that. We also received no objection from Hydro. We did receive a comment from CP Rail. They have no objection to the application, but they just did note that the property falls within 500 meters of their rail line. So they just like to make people aware that there's a website called proximityissues.ca that lays out best practices for development near rail lands, but they did not ask for anything to be implemented with the application and don't have any objection to it. And then we also received one piece of correspondence from a neighbor. Let me get it here. From Mr. Ted McCullough, who lives at 1036 Quay Road. He is in support of the application. In addition to his support of the application, he provided some comments with regards to some of the issues that he thinks are present on Quay with basically related to vehicle traffic and littering were the two main things. So we've went ahead and forwarded his letter on to our Public Works Committee for their review. So the Public Works Committee will look at some of his comments about Quay, but as specifically relates to Frank's application, he's in support of it.
Perfect. So it sounds like we can move ahead then, Carrie, with reading of a motion.
File number B 2021-21. The applicant is requesting consent to sever from the Committee of Adjustment for the purpose of creating one new lot from the property at 922 Quay Road. We, the undersigned, in making the decision upon this application, have considered whether or not the requested consent is in conformity with the policies laid out in the East Ferris official plan and consistent with the requirements of Section 51 of the Planning Act. Concur in the following decision and reasons for decision on the 16th day of June 2021. The requested consent to create one new additional lot be approved, conditional upon the following. That confirmation is provided that all taxes are paid up to date, that a plan of survey is prepared and filed with the municipality, that a plan of survey be sent electronically to the East Ferris Community Planner, that the applicant pays $250 in finalization fees prior to the transfer of the parcel of land, that the applicant is required to pay $1,000 per consent application to the municipality of East Ferris for the parkland dedication fee, that the transfer of land is submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the issuance of the certificate of consent, that subsection 53 of the Planning Act as amended applies to any subsequent conveyance or transaction ever in relation to the parcel of land being the subject of this consent, and that all conditions must be filed within 1 year if the date the notice of decision has been given, otherwise this provisional consent will lapse, and the application for consent shall be deemed to be refused.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just go around again. I'll start with Terry, if you're good.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Good. Al?
I'm fine, thanks.
And I guess that's Bill.
Yeah, it's nice to hear the neighbors support this change, and it meets all the bylaw requirements, so I have no problems.
Okay, good. So that is carried then and passed. And Greg?
Okay, so before the end of the week, Frank, you'll receive a copy of the decision and a notice of the decision. The notice of the decision lays out the last day of appeal and the timelines for approval. So you'll get the application package with a copy of the conditions that need to be fulfilled for the next steps.
Thank you. Thanks, committee.
Okay, now jump over to the other side. Okay, welcome back, Frank. It's good to have you back with us as a committee member. Greg, do we have a need for in-camera session?
No, we do not.
Okay, any correspondence?
No.
Okay, then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment. Al and Frank.
I'll
Go
just
ahead.
read it. That the Committee of Adjustment meeting adjourn at 7:07 PM.
Thank you. All in favor? Good. We are adjourned. Do we want to take a 2-minute break to see if we can get Councillor Lahi back with us before, sorry about that, before planning advisory? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. We'll give it a 5-minute then, if we can be back. Is that all right, Greg?
Yeah, whatever the committee wants to do, definitely. So for the benefit of everyone watching on YouTube, then the committee is taking 5 minutes, so we'll reconvene at 7:13 PM.
Thank you. Okay. I would say we're good to go at any time now. Everybody's here. You just need to start the, or are we still live, Greg?
Yeah, we stayed live.
Okay, perfect. So welcome this evening again to the Planning Advisory Committee for Wednesday, June 16th. We are after 7 p.m. We're delayed a few minutes, but appreciate your patience and waiting. And I'd like to ask if we could have a motion and a seconder for the adoption of the agenda. Al and Frank, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And mover and seconder for the accepting of the minutes of the previous meeting, Erica and Terry. All in favor? Thank you. And then do we have a ratepayers delegation for planning advisory? Then we are on to the public hearing. So again, I'll say good evening and welcome to this evening's Planning Advisory Committee. I'll make sure I read the right one here to go along with this meeting. This is a public meeting to hear comments and questions from any members of the public regarding the planning applications as outlined in this agenda. As required under the Ontario Planning Act, this is a statutory public meeting being held by the Planning Advisory Committee prior to making any recommendation to council for approval or refusal of the proposed applications. The Planning Advisory Committee reviews all comments and submissions received prior to this evening's meeting, as well as those comments received during the course of tonight's meetings. No decision has been made on any application before the committee tonight, and all presented information will be taken into consideration if and when a final recommendation is made. The Planning Advisory Committee is made up of 5 citizen appointees from the municipality, along with 2 members of council. And I'll ask that the members introduce themselves one at a time. Thank you.
I'm Al Harif.
Thank you.
Frank Corbeil.
Terry Kelly,
Bill Boak.
And I am John Simmons, acting chair for this evening. If any person in attendance this evening would like to be notified of future decisions or correspondence with regards to an item on the agenda tonight, please contact the municipal office or email greg.curtin@eastferris.ca. The format that we will follow this evening is as follows. We will ask the applicant to join us or their agent to outline the request. Committee members will then be given the opportunity to ask questions. Municipal staff will provide an overview of any comments received on the application, and the committee will hear from members of the public that wish to make a submission. The applicant/agent may provide follow-up information and answer questions, and the committee will put forward a recommendation. We'd ask that all comments please be respective and related directly to the application that is before us. And I would ask that if any committee members have a conflict of interest with regard to any of the agenda items tonight, would they please declare it now? So with that, we will now proceed into the public meeting, starting with our application, SB 02021-01 and C 2021-03 Miller Urso Surveying on behalf of Jeffrey Staples.
Okay, I'll admit Mr. Miller from the waiting room.
Thank you. Good evening, Rick. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, John?
Good. Thank you very much. I would ask at this time, we're ready to hear from you on the applications that you have forward tonight.
Okay. This is a continuation of the meeting a month ago on application for a rezoning and draft plan of condominium on a property in Astorville for a 4-unit condominium. So it was suggested that the decision be deferred for a month to see if there was more information. What I can present at this time is we've done all our topographic survey and preliminary engineering for the site for our lot grading and stormwater management, and have determined that that we will be able to control the stormwater within the site and not adversely affect the properties to the south that we're concerned about runoff going to them. We'll do this via ditching along the driveway, which will accommodate the requirements under the provincial stormwater management policies. And the water will be directed out to Village Road, where there's an existing drainage course. A culvert goes under Village Road and takes the water to the east. We will control the water within the site so that there's nothing more leaving the property post-development than there is pre-development. And in fact, by doing this, there will actually be less water that will run down into the adjoining properties to the south than presently runs down there without any controls. So that issue that was brought up, I believe that speaks to it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, before development could proceed, we have to finalize all of the site engineering and stormwater management plan and have it approved by the municipality's engineer. The other issue that was of concern from the neighbors to the south, or privacy issues and so on, we had stated that we would put fencing along that side. However, if they wish, instead of fencing, we'd be happy to plant trees along there, probably coniferous trees that would provide privacy year-round rather than deciduous trees that would lose their leaves and not provide any privacy in the wintertime. This could be done along that southern boundary, which could help with the privacy if that would help to alleviate some of their concerns. When the site was cleared for this future development by the owner, there were several larger trees left along that south side of the property, and they're going to remain there. There's no intention to remove any of them. So I think those are the things that we can do to address the concerns that were expressed. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
Okay, so I'll ask the committee if there is anybody with questions. Terry.
Rick, what's the total size of the lot, please?
Total size of the lot is just over 0.6 hectares. So an acre and a half.
So 1.5 acres, basically.
Approximately, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other member have questions at this time? Okay. Greg, would you like to share anything just going in order at this point?
Yeah, I'll just touch on anything new we submitted. So given this was a deferred item, all of the correspondence from the last meeting remains applicable. But with regards to new information, The only things that we received were a copy of the presentation from Mr. Howe, who is waiting in the waiting room to speak tonight. So sorry, excuse me. So that was circulated to the committee members for the review when we received it from Mr. Howe. And the only other piece of correspondence was an email from Mr. Joe Maksood following the last meeting. It was in the evening of the last meeting. He just wanted to highlight his feeling that there were privacy concerns as relates to the second story windows on the condo and the increased elevation and sight lines relative to the development next to the adjacent residential. And those are the only two new pieces of correspondence we received. My planning report stays the same, and I didn't have anything additional to add. So all of the opinions in that remain the same.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess we can move forward with anybody. Go ahead, Erica.
Sorry, I thought I was talking and I was on mute. I just didn't know, I don't know if Mr. Miller was privy to the recent letter that we got from the House.
No, I haven't received anything new.
Okay, I just didn't know if that would help, like, I just wanted to know who had what information, because I know that we had gotten a letter not too long ago. Maybe it would be helpful. Maybe, well, I guess he's coming on shortly and can ask the questions that he's pertained to in the letter, but I think it would be helpful to address that. Forgive me if I'm not trying to derail anything. I just was thinking about it.
Absolutely, very valid input, and I'm assuming or believing that Mr. Howe will probably address his presentation so that Rick can hear it at least at that point. But you're right, we should have perhaps ensured he had a copy ahead of time. So,
the question for Greg. The terminology condominium seems to be applied to many different areas. Are we talking a two-story dwelling, multiple dwellings, 2 stories? We're not talking 10-floor condominium complex tall or anything like that.
Yeah, so what that means, you're right that you hear the word condo a lot, and condo is thrown around to mean any varying degree of apartment building in kind of like the colloquial sense. But what a draft plan of condominium actually means in the Planning Act is just an ownership model. So what it means is you're dividing the land or the unit in a way that each unit is owned by an individual owner, and then there's common elements within the development that are owned and governed by the condominium corporation. So condominium doesn't inherently mean any type of built form. It's more about ownership model.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, any other questions before we invite
I've got a question for Rick.
Yes.
Rick, was there any test water wells drilled on that site before this application came to this committee?
Yes, we drilled a well and pump tested it, and there was a report from the well drilling company submitted with the application. The well was supplying 10 gallons a minute, which by the standards in the province is more than sufficient for the 4 units that are being proposed here.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Frank.
Greg, does this application meet the 4 tests?
So the 4 tests apply to minor variances. The considerations in the Planning Act are different for these types of applications. So you evaluate against section 5124, which is the subdivision criteria. So those are the criteria that apply to draft plans of subdivision, condominium, and severance applications. And then you look at rezonings based on conformity with the Planning Act, provincial policy statement, and official plan policies. So I covered a lot of that in my report from the last meeting. But yes, it's my opinion that those sections of the Planning Act and the criteria for zoning bylaw amendments are met for these applications.
Thank you.
Greg, the Mattawa Conservation Authority has also come out and approved this as well, have they not?
So they submitted comments at the last meeting stating that they had no concerns with the installation of a septic system for the property. And they also had no concerns with any environmental features or floodplain related matters. So they not so much approved it, but stated that they didn't have objections to the proposal, which is their standard course for these types of applications.
So Greg, then if I can ask a question, I think the major issue we were hearing about before was that of privacy. Does the Planning Act account for what's an acceptable imposition on that privacy? Or is it silent?
I missed the first part of the stream cut out for me there. So I missed the first half of your comment, John.
Okay. It was just a question around the privacy component of the concern being probably the biggest. I think Mr. Miller's offering a couple of decent solutions, albeit, may take a bit of time for trees to grow. Ultimately, there could be some restored privacy had. But does the Planning Act speak to privacy and what's an acceptable imposition on somebody's privacy?
So the Planning Act doesn't really get into those specifics. The Planning Act more lays the framework for which other policies at the municipal level are adopted. So our official plan does have some sections that speak broadly to privacy and I guess infringement upon other property owners' privacy. It's a difficult topic because it's almost impossible to lay out in like a quantitative way. So it's something that's just very subjective in nature, and that's honestly part of the consideration that the committee has to think about when making the recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if I could add some context, I mean, when we're talking about privacy, we'll look at things like, I guess, immediate imposition on adjacent properties, property size, reasonable expectation of property based on location or area, the direction of the planning policies for a specific area, and what the, I guess, vision for types of built form and density would be for that area. So, for example, one of the village areas where our planning policies direct us to look at higher density buildings, different types of built form other than single detached, where the provincial policies will direct intensification, which this location is, the expectation of privacy would be somewhat lower than an estate residential subdivision or a waterfront lot where minimum requirements are larger and different types of built form are the kind of like the norm, I guess. So all of that has to be weighed when considering, I guess, the privacy impacts. My opinion would be that nobody can ever or should ever expect complete and total privacy, in the sense that it's not reasonable to expect a new development to never have anyone looking into an adjacent yard, for example. So it's all about weighing what those impacts are. So in this specific development, we see things like the outdoor balconies being oriented on the opposite side of the building to the adjacent residential, or on the ends of the building in a way that they provide the least possible impact in a privacy sense. Similarly, you have windows on the second floor, designed in a way that one of them is in a stairwell that's not going to have people consistently looking out of it. So you really got to just factor in all those things and decide whether a reasonable level of privacy is still maintained in the adjacent properties or not.
Okay, if there's nothing else from anyone, then we'll invite, I guess, as you see fit, any member of the public.
Okay, we only have one presentation tonight from Mr. Howe, so I'll admit him right now.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else from anyone, then we'll, as you see fit, any member of the public.
Okay, we only have.
Hold on for me. Unmute it.
So I'll admit him right now.
Thank you.
I think that was us.
Okay, sounds like the YouTube channel is off. Can you hear us okay?
We can hear you.
Good, and we can hear you back. Thank you again for joining us this evening. And we're asking for you to go ahead and present anything you'd like to bring forward this evening.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. First and foremost, Ellen and I just want to thank those of you who did come out and had a look at, took a walk through our backyard into the property to kind of get a really good feel for what we're going to see and how it's going to look from our view. We still don't feel that the developer has given proper consideration of our reciprocal rights to adjacent landowners. And we still will be deprived of the reasonable enjoyment of our backyard and our deck by the upgrading condo owners' ability to see into our backyard. The privacy fence that Mr. Miller spoke of, they're only a 6-foot fence. That's the municipality bylaw. And we just don't feel that's going to be high enough to stop the top level where the kitchens and living room areas are to be able to still oversee our entire backyard. Keeping in mind that our deck is only 70 feet to the property line. And I have a quick question for Mr. Miller, who said that they don't need to remove any of the remaining trees that are there. And as much as we appreciate that, the lot depth from our property line to the furthest north property line is only 150 feet. The dwelling is to be set back 35 feet from the north side, and the building is 39 feet in depth. We still haven't, that only leaves 75 feet, and we haven't put a parking lot in there yet. So you still need to utilize that remaining footage to allow for the parking lot and for a full-size truck to be able to turn around. So to put it into perspective, the parking lot is going to start where our property line ends. So the current trees, there's no way that those trees will be able to remain there and have vehicles come and go in and out of that parking lot. It's physically impossible. Can you comment on that, Mr. Miller?
Absolutely, I can. If you look at the drawing that was supplied, the draft plan of condominium, we show the driveway and the parking spots and a space between them and the property line, which is going to be retained. And we actually have more, the way we have shown it, we have more of a driving path than is necessary for the turning in and out from the parking. We can actually even make that smaller. So there's definitely an area of about 15 feet or so minimum between any of the developed area and your property line.
So, oh, go ahead.
No, that's all I had to say.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we appreciate that, keeping in mind again that our property, that property line is only 70 feet from the deck, but there was a safety issue that was brought up as well. And I don't think that those safety issues are really addressed because again, you know, our kids play in the backyard here and we worry enough about our children going to across the road to the park. And I still have a safety concern about the children playing in our own backyard in the event that there's a malfunction of an automobile or a medical emergency and something happens in the car that it ends up and there's no barrier between us.
Well, we're suggesting fencing, we're suggesting vegetative buffer. I mean, if it was deemed that it was a major factor, there could always be a guardrail put along the limit of the roadway, but I think it's very unnecessary in this case. I mean, we're not dealing with that steep a bank or that great a fall off, but I mean, that certainly could be a safety factor that could be incorporated in the site plan control agreement.
Okay, well, again, our biggest concern was the fact that there's only 150 feet deep by 200 feet wide, and they're trying to utilize every square foot of that proposed space. It turns out to be 30,000 square feet of space. And we appreciate everything, all the efforts that are going in to help with our privacy and security. We're also not concerned yet that the engineering behind the water management system is going to completely control the 7,000 square feet of runoff and you know, the soil's ability to absorb the water. Has there been any testing on this? I mean, we're at a point here now where we think a third party expert should be hired or brought in to do tests on the soil and these grounds to ensure that the grounds are capable of holding this or supporting this waste management system.
Well, if I can comment on that, first of all, we have a professional engineer who designs the stormwater management plan and lot grading to provincial and municipal standards. They sign and certify it. That then has to be approved by the municipal engineer. And the municipal engineer can ask for changes, for modifications and so on, but it has to meet the standards as published by the province under the stormwater management policies that the province puts out that are required. So the safeguards you're asking for are already in place. The third party is the municipal engineer who reviews it. And if they feel that there's more testing required, that is up to them at that point in time. But I can assure you that our engineers take it very seriously, and the plan will meet all of the provincial and municipal standards.
Did you have any?
You wanted to ask the well to see if that would affect our wells.
Well, we don't assume that the wells will be a big issue. Of course, we brought up the well issue. You know, who can be assured that our wells will be safe in the years to come with the new drilled well behind us? Do you feel that there will ever be a change in that? Could somebody say, no, it won't affect your well, or?
The size of the development under the provincial standards does not require a hydro-G report to be prepared. With only 4 units, it's not required. There was pump testing. The well was drilled. There was pump testing done on it, and so on. Meets all the provincial requirements. That's really all I can comment on for you.
Okay, well, Alan had previously made a comment about was a well drilled, and we knew that well was drilled because those pictures were supplied in the last meeting, where when they pumped the well, it all ended up on my septic bed in the backyard. And again, it still raises the concern of snow removal in the wintertime when they plow the lot. They'll have no choice again, utilizing every square foot of that small 150 by 200 foot lot, they're going to end up piling snow in the southwest corner, which it will cause a serious problem with spring runoff. And I'm not sure that your water management system will contain that water for us and help resolve that issue.
Yeah, it has to accommodate for that. And I mean, we're not using every square foot on this property. We're actually using a very small footprint and far under the usable footprint that could exist under the zoning bylaws. I mean, this building that is being proposed here is not that large a building. It's no larger than a large bungalow with an attached garage that would be a single family dwelling on the property. So it's not a huge footprint and a huge use of the site.
So our issue is where it's placed. You know, a lot of that property, basically down by the bottom corner, is unusable space. So of course you can't build down where the swamp is, but everything is all pushed into the back corner behind our home. So we have no issues with that property being rezoned as residential, but you know, could you not maybe think about building a single family dwelling facing Village Road further down below, so that our backyards can adjoin and we can still keep the privacy and the trees that we already have? Why a fourplex in that tiny space?
Well, the reason for it is there's a need. Your policies within the official plan of the municipality encourage multiple residential within those village designations. The present zoning on the property allows for commercial development on that property, which would be more intense than this is in this case. So I think this is a highest and best use with the least amount of impact based on the current zoning and what it could be used for.
Well, Rick, like we're just still not satisfied that this small parcel of land is going to support the building and a parking lot. I don't see how it could possibly happen. I've done a walkthrough with Mr. Curtin. I've laid everything out for him. It's physically impossible to put the size of the parking lot in and make everything work. I just don't see how the engineering would allow for it. You're the expert. I'm not going to second guess it, but I really struggle to see how it's going to work, because with Mr. Curtin, we laid it out, and there's no way to put a parking lot in there without removing the rest of the trees.
Yeah.
And that's the issue, is with such a small lot that we are situated on, there is not 30 or 40 feet of mature, dense brush that would prevent me from seeing this great big building right behind our home.
I mean, we've illustrated it within our plan that we have submitted. Our engineers have reviewed it and have, are confident that it can take place, and the assurances are that it has to be approved by the municipality and their engineers as well. Mm-hmm. So if, as you're saying, it's not possible to do, it would never proceed. So from an engineering standpoint, it has to be designed to protect you and the other neighbors, and it will be.
Well, the only other thing is like there's so many other properties around the area. There's really this type of building needs, a minimum of 2 acres to make everything work and function properly. We're trying to jam a golf ball through a garden hose here. We're trying to sausage everything into this small little confined space, and it's so much extra work that has to be done to make it happen. Again, we're totally respective of a home going in there, or a smaller building going there in the right location. It's just trying to configure this entire building and its parking lot basically in mine and my neighbor's backyard. And that's the issue.
Okay. Well, we appreciate again you coming and presenting your concerns and talking through things. And so I think I'm just going to go around and ask committee members if they have any questions, comments, concerns. And just based on the layout of my screen, I'll start with Al, please.
I'm okay for the moment, John, thanks.
Okay, Bill?
I think I'm okay right now, John.
Okay, thank you. Erica?
Yeah, I'm okay too. Thank you.
You, Terry?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, and Frank?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. So then I will ask the committee how they would wish to proceed. Does anybody want to make a motion or direct in any way or another? Well, Terry?
If we're going to make a motion, I'd have a motion to defeat the application.
So that would be to defeat the application?
That's correct. We're asking, we just had our committee of adjustment meeting, and somebody had 2 acres for a single dwelling home and had to add an acre. So that was 1 single dwelling home on 3 acres. They want to put a 4-unit townhouse. And Bill, just to answer your question, it's going to look like a townhouse configuration. It's not a condo usually is spread out. This is a townhouse with four different units in it, 4 different families. So bottom line is it's going to destroy the rural integrity and feeling in the village itself. So I personally would make a motion that it be defeated. That's my personal feeling. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to that motion?
I actually kind of leaning the other way, John. My reason being, I respect that the house privacy is a definite concern. You know, we've got these engineers have looked at it. We still have to go through our own municipalities engineer, and if it meets all the planning board requirements, although I'm not a fan of condominiums or townhouses in a rural setting, if it still meets the requirements, I think it's something that we have to really consider.
Okay, I'm going to revert back and appreciate your comments, so Bill, and ask if there's a seconder to that motion. And there is not a seconder, so that.
I'll second it. I'll second Bill's.
Second.
Yeah, the reason too is I just think that maybe, you know, if there's larger issues with our official plan, Terry, then we should tackle them on that end. If we're not liking how that's laid out and if there's something that we need to address there. However, as it stands right now, it fits. And from that standpoint, I don't have the justification to defeat it.
Okay, so we do not have a seconder for that motion. So that means that motion does not go forward for vote. Okay, so is there an alternate motion to be made? It sounds like there could be. Is anybody going to make Frank?
John, I don't understand something here. Bill Volk just, I thought, put forth a motion, and I thought Erica seconded it.
Yeah, that's how it went. Yep.
And I will support both Bill and Erica's position on this.
Okay, what I'm suggesting is that we had a motion on the floor by Terry, and we have to go through that motion first. That motion did not get a seconder, therefore that motion is dead. So now somebody can make a motion differently to approve.
John, sorry, not to cut you off, sorry about that.
No
I will motion to move forward.
Okay, is there a seconder? Thank you. Is there comments, questions by any committee member? Al, we heard from you. Frank?
I'm in agreement with the motion.
Okay, so I will ask that that motion be read.
File number SB 2020-101 and C 2020-103, Miller and Urso Surveying on behalf of Jeff Staples. Whereas the owners of the lands described as Concession 3, Part Lot 21, PCL 15241, RP 36R 5309, Part 1 on what is locally known as Village Road in the municipality of East Ferris, has applied for a draft plan of condominium and zoning bylaw amendment for the purpose of creating 4 residential units, be approved with the following conditions stated below. And whereas the application has regard for the criteria of section 5124 of the Planning Act, and whereas the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, and whereas the application is in conformity with the policies contained within the official plan for the municipality, therefore be it resolved that this application be recommended for approval conditional upon the following. That confirmation is provided that all taxes are paid up to date, that this approval expires 3 years from the date of approval shown on the face of the draft plan. If there is an appeal to the LPAT, the 3-year expiration period does not begin until the date of the order of the local planning appeal tribunal issued in respect of the appeal, or from the date of notice issued by the tribunal. The draft approval applies to the plan of subdivision prepared by plan of condominium prepared by Miller and Urso Surveying as shown on Appendix C of the staff report dated May 19th, 2021, that prior to signing the final plan by the municipality, the proposed condominium plan conforms to the zoning bylaw or with respect to any zoning conditions or changes related to this application, that the owner agrees in writing by way of entering into agreement to satisfy all requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality of East Ferris concerning provision of road, installation of services, drainage, and any other aspect of the development proposal. That such easements as may be required for utility or drainage purposes shall be granted to the appropriate authority. That the owner agrees to convey up to 5% of the land included in the plan or cash in lieu to the municipality for park or other public recreational purposes. That the subdivision agreement between the owner of the municipality be registered by the municipality against the lands to which it applies once the plan of subdivision has been registered prior to any encumbrances, and that before municipal council's final approval is given, the council shall be advised in writing by the manager of planning and economic development how condition number 7 has been satisfied.
Okay, thank you. So before I call for a vote, is there anybody that wishes for this to be a recorded vote? Terry has asked that, so I will go one by one. Committee members and Al.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Bill.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Erica
Favor, thank you.
and Frank
I'm in favor, thank you.
and Terry.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much for recording your votes. So that motion is carried, and I will pass it over to Greg.
Okay, so procedurally, this is also for the benefit of the House who are still on the call. The process, so the Planning Advisory Committee makes recommendations to council. So the motion that was just passed was a recommendation for approval to go to council. So this application will now be heard by council on June 22nd. It won't be heard in the sense that it's not a full public meeting. The statutory requirements for the public meeting are satisfied by the Planning Advisory Committee public meeting, but council is the decision-making authority for these types of applications. So council will receive the minutes and recommendation from this committee on the 22nd, in which they will make their decision. And Mr. Miller, I know you're familiar with the process, but once council makes their decision on the 22nd, the documentation will be sent out with regards to appeal timelines, notice of decision, and copy of decision for you and your client.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, for working through that and for all the comments, questions, etc. We now will move on in our agenda to item number 5, correspondence.
Nothing for this session.
Thank you. Is there any new business?
None for me.
Thank you. Any in-camera requirements?
Nope.
Nobody, okay. And then the final thing is an adjournment. I'd just like to say, Frank, yes, in favor?
I was gonna move it.
Okay, yeah, Frank.
And I'll
moved it.
second it.
Al seconding it, and just want to thank everybody for their involvement tonight and working through it. It was a difficult one, but we did our best to represent what we do on the committee here. So thank you. So all in favor of adjournment?
Job well done, John.
Thank you. That concludes.
Good job, John.
Thank you very much, folks. Bill, everybody's in favor. Erica, we are out. We are done. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.